there comes a time on the spiritual path when you realize, it dawns on you that answers in themselves, in and of themselves, aren't enough. Spiritual answers, philosophical answers, life answers, even emotional answers aren't enough. And if you realize that answers aren't enough because you've been chasing an answer, what about this and what about that? And it sort of takes you to the same place every time, which is mental understanding even. It takes you to mental understanding. But then what? Then you're kind of left in a way. I mean, don't get me wrong, mental understanding and a deeper understanding is perfectly good and actually very valuable. But what I'm talking about is if there's a longing deeper inside, to live in a different way or in a new way or in a transformed way, well then the answers that we get, either that come up from ourselves or that come from a teacher or a guru or a book or a YouTube video, aren't enough because we're looking for something more visceral. We're looking for something deeper. We're looking for something that's actually going to touch us deeper in the core, in the heart, in the soul, in the body, in the emotional body. And so there we are. The difference is that answers in themselves take us to maybe a door, to put it in imagery. They take us to a door, but they don't actually take us through the door, because through the door is the mystery. Through the door is the feeling body. Through the door is where the visceral sensation is. And in many ways, through the door is where the pain is. Through the door is where the shadow is. Through the door is where the suffering is. And, it's convenient that answers, they sort of work for a while, right? But then they don't take us through the door, so we don't actually get to really meet our own pain and our own shadow and our own darkness and our own suffering. And if we don't meet those, then nothing really changes ultimately, apart from a mental understanding or a philosophical understanding. And that might satisfy some people because some people really want to, get it. And maybe they don't have so much of the pain body or the darkness or the shadow or the suffering. So that's okay. But really many people do. A lot of people do. And a lot of people carry pain in their energetic body. They carry the past. They carry the suffering. They carry their shadow bag around. And end up on the spiritual path because all the other paths in many ways bring them to that point. What is the cause of my suffering really deeply, existentially? What is the purpose of my life? And what is the meaning of my life? Who am I really? What have I been doing with my time on earth? Where am I going? It's like these deep questions that don't get answered in therapy necessarily. Some of them do, but most don't. The deepest existential questions to ask, what is consciousness? What is my soul? What does my soul want? What is my spirit? What is my deepest longing? And these don't get really answered in any other arena than the spiritual arena. So the answers, we dance around and circle the flame for really quite a long time with those kind of answers, and books work and everything works, but they don't really work, right? They don't take us through the door. And it's through the door that the transformation is. And so one has to be able to kind of put down the knowledge and go through the door. And the door is where the pain is. The door is where the mystery is. The door is where the deepest love is. But it's also the door is where the existential, dilemmas, the deep existential wounds within us, the wounds at the center of our being, the core questions of who am I really and what is the nature of this experience that I'm having? What is the nature of my life? What is this? And those answers, they've been questions that have been asked for thousands of years since humans, probably in many ways, have walked the planet, maybe after some of the more primitive or primal days. But they're not answers that can be known with the mind. They're answers that can be lived with one's beingness. And then that's where it's at. And that's what this pure invitation is. To don't be afraid to go beyond knowledge. Because beyond knowledge, through the door, beyond the door of knowledge, lies the vast, mysterious world of kind of deeper experience, of deeper knowing, of deeper being. To enter that, naked. To go through the door naked. Throw away everything that you think you know about yourself or about life. Throw away everything that all the stories that you've gathered up, all the justifications, all of it, all of the beliefs, to kind of throw them all away. They'll all be there if you need them again, but for the purposes of this, go naked into the mystery and be prepared to allow and meet what arises. It sounds simple. In these terms, it sounds simple. And of course, simple isn't a solution. Simple is only a description of how it is. It doesn't make it easy. It doesn't make it less painful just knowing it's simple. The difference between not through the door and through the door is vast. But even before you go through the door with all these answers, still the pain is there. Still the suffering is there. It's like, most people that I've worked with and meet, the ones who've kind of carried pain, the pain is there whether it's denied or not. The suffering is there whether it's denied or not. We imagine or think or hope that we can, by pushing it away, that somehow we'll manage to get away with it and avoid it. But that's kind of erroneous thinking. It's an error of thinking because we don't. It just shows up in all sorts of, darker, more insidious ways. Because everything is intelligent and everything wants to come home to light and love. So go through the door. Leave what you think you know behind and go through the door. Everything that's really required is there. I mean, not required, but everything that's really longed for is there through the door. The love that's sought, the grief that needs to flow, the sorrow that needs to, gush out. It's through that door, the door of surrender, ultimately, isn't it? The door of surrender. And we say, I can't do surrender. But actually, in this way of kind of visualizing it in a way, you can actually do a lot. Not by doing, but by softening. Softening as you get to the door, just soften. Soften and say, I don't know, but I'm willing to find out. I don't know, but I'm willing to enter into the mysterious room. I'm willing somehow. If you offer yourself that willingness again and again and again, by and by, divine intelligence or something hears you and says, okay, let's here we are. And it ends up being a sort of, a kind of love affair with knowing, not knowing. It takes a while. It does take a while. This softening, this surrender, this entering the unknown, this willingness, it's not a beating. You can't beat yourself into submission. You have to be like cooked into submission. You have to be softened into submission. You have to ripen into this surrender There's no other way of doing it. But I wanted to say on this day that, knowledge is good, but it's also overrated on the spiritual path, and we have to go through the door beyond knowledge in a way to discover a deeper lived experience of our true nature.